Okay. Good morning, and welcome to the last lecture of the course. Thank you so much for coming to class. It's nice to have you in body. I hope also in soul. So the photo is also very much in purpose because it's a rainy day. It seems the rainy season already came. This is just a detail of the Glasgow Museum of Modern Art, which is a reuse of an old church in neoclassic style. It's very, very strange mix. So just a last reminder, the last assignment is, final submission is tomorrow night. It has been already open for 1 week. I think 4 or 5 people already submitted. Please don't get late. The link will close tomorrow at 11 p.m. If you have any problem, difficulty, please contact me, but try not to have it, okay? So I will not repeat. We already commented all we needed to comment in the previous lectures, and the videos and the handouts are online, so please go to them. Last weeks, there was a small set of typos in the formula for internal rate of return. This is Minje, who said it was weird. He didn't say what, just said it was weird. So in the formula, I forgot to turn off the animations. So it is the formula for just some of the subindex. I think this one, although those two were mistaken, right? It was an obvious error, but I corrected in the handout. And just in case, I'm sure you were all week doing these calculations, and surely you found the error yourselves. So I did some updates in Blackboard. One is, as I mentioned, there is an updated version of the assignment checklist. There's like a new notes for envelope and for green and integration. If you look back to your assignments, you see notes which are new. Please download the new version. The new comments, new items appear because things I keep writing to many students, and then instead of writing once many times, I just add the note, right? I added some additional material for the life cycle analysis. I mentioned some papers, some articles. One is one I participated. You have the link to the full article if you want to see it. And 2 more I mentioned, I think last week, the last open lecture we had in the department, which was Nari Kim from VSA UBLO. She mentioned some studies and she explained that. I got from her the full paper in both Korean and English. It's quite interesting study, right? Then I added one more very short handout. It is kind of a practical handbook for designing with the climate, or for the climate, I don't remember. If you want to, if you find it is useful, you can get the book or something similar. There's many handbooks about it. I just give a sample for you to have the feeling of things, right? And the technologies. It's kind of very nice, interesting checklist for that. And there's one more thing. Some people asked me to comment on the assignment 4 we did online, which was like 20 questions. I was planning to add a small handout online, but after reviewing all the questions, there were only 3 which were a little bit difficult. And of them, only one was failed by most people, which was the one of the decibels up and down. All the other questions are very easy if you go to the material, the handout, so I don't think it's any difficulty. Even the construction detail, everybody did quite well. The only thing, Blackboard has a very rigid intelligence. It's not really artificial intelligence, not even intelligence. So if you don't make the reply format exact, it will tell you the reply is wrong. So that one I corrected by hand. I don't know if you can access your grade. If you cannot tell me, and I will try to tweak Blackboard so you can go back to the assignment and see what you did and what you did not. The only thing difficult was the decibel question. You may remember we wanted to have one given perceived noise of X decibel, and we wanted to make it the perception like a 1/16 noise reduction, right? So that the question was, we have X decibels, how many decibels we have to lower down to feel like a 1/60th of that sound? Well, we will remember that our perception is logarithmic, and that 10 decibels feels like twice, right? It's plus. If you have minus, feels like a half, right? And remember, we're speaking of decibels, this is powers of 10. That means that 10 times the sound, this 1 power of 10, right, feels like just twice. Then if we do this one more time, it will be 1/4, right? We do the 4 times, we have 1/16, because 1/16 is 1 to the 4th power, I guess. Am I right? And in logarithm powers is additions, right? So you have to subtract 10 decibels 4 times. So that will minus 40 decibels will feel like 1/16 of the initial sound, right? So you have to reduce 40 decibels. That means the real energy is like 1 divided by 10,000, right? 10 to the 4th. So 10,000 smaller energy is felt like a 1/16th of the sound. This is very easy problem if you understand and you have clear the concept of the logarithm, right? It is very helpful for exam question because I see soon who is understanding and who is trying to guess. That was the only difficult question. All the others really were just going to the handouts, the lectures, and see what was there. So it's not a big deal. Easy. So last week we ended with an example of a net present value, kind of having a very useful tool, practical, primitive, imperfect, but a practical tool to guess or to check, to study if some kind of investment pays back over time based on the savings, right? We have over time. And we already did one office building. Remember, we put 50% with the solar panels. And we calculated in a very rough calculation, so we could be much more detailed, but the calculation we did said it paid back in 26 years, right? Until the year 26, you are not recovering your investment. And we said the panels have a guarantee of 25 years, so they don't pay in the lifetime of the panels. Even less if the electricity cost went down, as it went down here, curiously. Could pay back if the electricity becomes higher and the interest rate comes higher and so on. No, interest rate comes lower, not higher, and so on. But the question is, for an office building, it didn't pay back. The simulation we did. And this is why we don't see so many panels in big buildings, just to look good. But we did example 2 for one house. I did not update the data. So the same guy wanted to have the same exercise, 50% of the energy supplied by solar panels, and see the cost paid back. The point here is, even though this changed a little bit, in Korea, if you have a just average consumption, the price of electricity is much higher than any business. And if your house is electrical, you can pay a huge lot of money for each amount of energy you use. And that changes a lot. Because in this case, just 100 square meters house, all electric, makes so much amount of electricity consumed that the price goes very high. So again, in this case, he needs to do the calculation and he has to convince his wife. So he needs to have the return back before 25 years. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. This is the electricity cost I used, which is 2010. This is not updated, as I said. And well, this is the basic data. And this is the same calculation we did last week, right? With the same parameters. So in this case, we need like a 41 square meters of panels just to have 50% of the power, which means almost half the area of the house, right, is solar panels. If we wanted to have 100%, we would need like a full roof, full area of the house filled with solar panels. So, but with today's technology, just by watching the amount of solar panels they have, you may have a guess of how much percentage of the energy you are using, right? Look at the area of Champs Hill Tower, look at the area of solar panels, and you can guess the percentage of energy they're supplying by solar, for example. So in this case, the calculation with all the same numbers we did, the red numbers pay back in the second year. So in just 1 year, you start having the money back. So, and of course, since the consumption is reduced, the cost of electricity is going down very fast, and that adds to the savings, right? In this case, in the simulation here, which is 10 years, he saved a total of 34 million at present value, right? Which is much more than the investment, which was a 7 million one. So you see how different is the output and why it doesn't make sense telling if green systems pay back or do not pay back. It depends very much on each case. And this is a very simple calculation to do, right? Of course, this is not totally realistic, but the idea is the concept. So green systems, green energy pays back, doesn't pay back. It depends, right? It depends. And the decision has to be studied for each case. But surely, even with the reduction of cost of electricity in housing in Korea, for houses, if you have a considerable amount of electricity cost, it pays back, right? And this is why many individuals are individually, privately putting solar panels in the houses, because they really have a big saving. Let's go into the remaining of the lecture. The last thing we have to speak to complete the subject. By the way, the photo is Einstein office, if you don't recognize it. He has his books and he would make his calculation on the blackboard. And we will have just say what is it, what's the principle, some examples, and then try to make some critique. So what is a numerical assessment method or the certification methods we see around? The point is just a comparative study. We have what we call the baseline, the existing building. So the general building we use as a standard to compare. And then a new building, which one to compare with existing. And we just see, we compare them and we see this better, the same, it's worse. And that's what we do in the assessment methods, right? So you compare some parameters. Again, sustainability is very complex. So as we saw already, so we have to choose what we compare. And this is the selected performance parameters is already arbitrary. We have to take something out and something in. And the comparison is also weighted, right? So we give more importance to some parameters than others. So we have two already arbitrary elements introduced in the way we do this comparison. And this is a necessity because we have to be practical. We cannot have the perfect comparison of absolutely everything because it could be taken forever. Then, based on that selected parameters and that arbitrary weighting, we compare and we say, this is performing worse than the standard we have to improve. And then you correct until it is the required standard or better, and then you get a certification telling the project you did probably will perform better based on those criteria than the baseline. As simple as that. The problem is, as we said, the baseline is arbitrary. The parameters are arbitrary and the weighting of them is arbitrary. It has some logic, but somebody has to decide what's more important what's not important, what we can leave out. So it's 3 points which make very difficult to compare different methods. But the principle is that, just comparative study. So what set of systems we have already prepared, waiting for us to be used? Actually, there's a lot. There's one of the some oldest. Matisse was a study for Europe. LEED is the one everybody knows. Not the best, but the most famous. This is what is in the center. BREEAM goes together with LEED. It's like American and British, 2 empires fighting to get the cultural and design empire. CASB is a Japanese. DGNB is a German. IATOS, because these are some of the most recent and most perfect we have now. Right. Then we have what else? GSEED, which is one of the newest. You might be familiar because it is required by the Korean government, right? We have a Lifecycle Building Challenge, which is a bit more private site. GBC 2005 or 2050, and Passive House, which is a different criteria, and we heard of it also many times, and so on, right? So there's plenty of those, and they are very happy for you to use them because that means you have to pay the fee, and even they're non-profit, that adds to their business because even non-profit, so many people live of that business. Sustainability is crazy with abbreviations, and it is very confusing. So I look at the most complete list I found, and I share here just for your reference. It's not updated. Probably now they have 3 times as many abbreviations, but it's kind of learning a foreign language. I will just comment a few of them, which is, I think, interesting. CASB is a Japanese, as I said, and it stands for Comprehensive Assessment System for Building Environment Efficiency. And they have a homepage in English because the system is very much specific for Japan with the Japanese technology and vision, but sustainability problem is universal and buildings have many things in common. So they also have the idea of expanding. Japanese empire is not at its best, but still is a power, right? And it is 2001, which already 20 years, but it's one of the most modern we have. What is interesting? As many other systems have different fields of application, new construction, abbreviated version, which is interesting. You can have a fast study. You have heat island renovation, urban plus buildings, existing property appraisal. So they cover most of the fields we need. And they include all the stages of design, which is interesting, right? Most traditional rating systems are just for the finished building or for the construction period, not for the full process of building and even the post-occupancy, right? So it is very much comprehensive in terms of time. The other thing which is interesting, well, this is the how it is planned to be comprehensive, right? So you have some kind of guidance, some kind of method from the starting point, from the concept up to the user, which is innovation. Another thing which I think is very important is, or very unique or very innovative of them, is that they refer not only to the building, but building and the minimum context. And it's interesting because, well, each individual is different, but students graduating from school, we have probably about 50 students graduating this year, and probably a big percentage of you, I don't know who, never went beyond the building envelope to consider the design. And buildings are more than just the building itself, right? So this interesting thing, which adds some interest to this system. And then the calculation is not just adding points. Of course, you have to make the enquete, but it's just a balance, a ratio between benefits and loads. It is clear every building makes an impact. It was the introduction. Every building is a disaster for the ecology and for the sustainability, but there's many corrective measures we can add, and that is the balance what they measure. It's not just adding points, and that gives you a lot of information. So in the end, you have a 2-dimensional graph with the loads and the performance or the improvements. And depending the area you are in the graph, of course, the top left will be the highest with less impact and more performance will give you a better rating. And the information they give you is very comprehensive, right? You have a full chart with the performance in at least 6 different fields, which include adaptability, reusability, serviceability, durability. One of the things we comment, which are not always included, and a lot about the landscape preservation and the cultural issue of the building. So it's very comprehensive, right? So it is very exigent, very comprehensive, and adds or elaborates for many of the gaps other more traditional systems do not have. In the end, you have almost all the material, not everything, but almost all is available online and in English, so you can go very deep. There's like a lot of sheets in which you put each of the parameters and see how you perform when you compare to the baseline, and that gives you that kind of evaluation, right? And in the end, you have a result with the impact you have, your position in the table, and then well, the example they put here, which again, I like this example because this is not a great design either. So having very good certification, very good performance doesn't make the design much better. There's something that's just another layer in the project. DGMB is also maybe a bit older, but very interesting system. This is German, and I will not even try to read it. I never went beyond the lesson 2 of German. That's not enough for this. And again, there's no longer a German empire, but German technology is very much respected, and they are also expanding because the system is quite complete and interesting. And when I did this lecture, they were mostly in Europe and some parts of America, but I know they are also working in Korea, right? Actually, you could have your certification, you can go online, and at least 3-4 years ago, they were doing it. So that's also interesting. As we saw in Japan, they have different systems for each kind of project. New construction is the most developed at existing constructions, interior districts, lots of studies from urban planning and the neighborhoods from whole cities, right? So it's quite interesting. And this is the result they give. I will not go into the insights because we don't have time. You can always go to the reference if you are interested. It is working again on 5 different sets of issues, parameters, but then each of them has a set of things you have to perform, and you have to perform in all, right? Some systems you can just ignore some parts, and the energy may compensate for healthy materials, things like that. In this case, you have to provide a minimum performance in every set of issues. And they also include all the context, site, process, after use, and all that. So it's very exigent, right? And very informative. You don't have just a number, then it's gold, silver certified. You have very clear view of how that building, how that project or that city performs, what it is stronger, what is weaker. And I think it's also interesting. Much more sophisticated and very exigent, very hard to achieve. BREEAM is one of the traditional ones, right? Is older, British, also nice title, Building Research Establishment for Environmental Assessment Methods. And it is UK, but it goes, of course, all of the Commonwealth, Gulf area, many British culture, but it's everywhere. And you see those traditional ones are like a kind of fighting for marketing. Every system is the best, #1 in the world, the best. And every country has it. And we have the life cycle. It is great. We have also a branch in Korea. So we have BREEAM certified buildings in in this case in Seoul. And the organization is the same. So they may make new additions. They have to compete against the new Japanese and German. So they add chapters about urban new construction and things like that, or communities, construction, and so on. For buildings, they are quite interesting. They follow different typologies, and they examine like 10 sets of issues. So there are 5 issues, but expanded to 10. And they would give you points by each, right? In some cases, you need very little to have the outstanding. In other cases, like CO2, right? You have a lot. So it's like the most considered part. And this is what we comment out of the weighting, right? Most people are worried about the CO2 emissions, the energy, so that gets a lot of value. But other things like, well, yeah, educational value or, you know, zero carbon technology have not so many points in general. And this is very straightforward. Differently from Japan or Germany, you have just a point. You pass with 30 points, right? You have a minimum to do in everywhere, but you don't have more information. Your building can be great for emissions and terrible for health of the site, or can be great for everything except for the emissions that you don't know. So that's a weak point. Green globes, I go fast. It is not very popular now, but this was like totally online. So I found it interesting it's totally online. So you have all the information on the open. Some people say it is just kind of green washing, like a system created by businesses to have a label which is very easy to accomplish and to give a good image. I didn't compare so much to say if it is that or not. But again, interesting because it's one more element to compare. We have online. I didn't update it here, the data here, but of course, this is American, it is better. It's not the best, but it's better than others. And they have a much more simplified system. Just new construction, existing, and interiors. I'm not sure they expanded to urban settings and things like that. And yes, in 2017, they added integration in design and climate change. I don't know how they rate it, but interesting is you see integration is a key word, not only for good design, but for sustainability. And again, they just give you a rating, a number. So the information you have is very, very lame, very poor. And we go to the king of accreditations, LEED, which is, of course, leadership in energy and environmental design. The best, the only. And it has been much updated. Last time, I think 2 years ago, it was version 4.0. Most of the data I have from 2009, but the principles are the same. So, and you see, LEED is not the best, it's just LEED is green building, it's equal. You don't need to research further. If you follow LEED, you have everything you need to know. And we have a lot of projects going on. It is very flexible because 165 countries use it. We will see the adaptation they did for Korea, and you will judge by yourselves. And of course, it's sustainable, and this is important. Value, yeah. You get money because life is business. This is the American vision of the world. And of course, Korea is very eager to keep with the Americans. So LEED Korea is very much developed. You have all the information in Korean, and you have all the means to certify yourself as an architect and also to certify buildings. They keep adding chapters as the others. So you have like neighborhoods, maintenance, interior homes, design construction. So this is elements they added as the competition became tougher. And actually, it is quite well studied. So I might sound a little bit negative against this, but the universities, they have a good technology, have good research. So this is not nonsense at all. So for each kind of construction, for example, you have a lot of research and information, which is also useful. This was an example for just a new construction. And this is interesting because they say LEED is based on 9 columns, 9 pillars. And among them is integration, innovation, and regional priority. They felt it was very much American-based, and to be international, I have to say, we are really, really local-based, right? But you see, the result is just to have 4 categories, from certified to platinum, and just 1 score. Again, the information you have is very little, and that's a weak point. And this is the summary of the points they give for each of those 9 columns, of which you see very few of them have basic requirements. Out of the 8, only 5 require a minimum. That means that other 3 or 4 you can totally ignore and still have the certification. And curiously, life cycle analysis is not a requirement, which is basic, and I find surprising. And those 4 pillars, like the integration, you can have no integration at all. I have the points. The innovation, of course, we commented already about this, but the regional priority is just optional, and it gives you a maximum of 4 points out of 110. So those 9 columns are like some ones and some just a very tiny sticks, right? There's an example of how it works. So if you reduce the energy consumption by 20%, for example, depending on the typology, you may get between 8 and 10 points. Right? This is just an example, and that goes for each of the 9 columns and the items you have. And then you just add points, and you have your certification based on the points you have. It's a bit more complex than that, but it's a summary of it. And then why healthcare gets more points than schools? Don't ask me, right? This is some of the arbitrary decisions that I don't totally get. Well, I can guess, but I cannot comment on my guessings here in class. So, and this is just an example to say how local specific. This is the paragraph for Korea. How is LEED Korean specific? Okay, optimize energy performance, having renewable energy, enhance commissioning, is more control. Well, I would support this. But then stormwater and wastewater technology and water use reduction. And we can say, okay, stormwater is an issue in Korea because we have the rainy season, the big storms and the floodings happen. But yet, does it make the system really Korea specific? Yeah, I think there's more than that, right? So I find things a little bit superficial, very much marketing in that sense. So I just added a few examples from 2009. Also, the basics are the same. I will go fast. This is like a summary of each of the elements. So for site, you have, for example, required, you have pollution prevention, but everything else of the site may add points, but not required. So I may do very little to improve the site and still have a certification. Same for the water, you can do like 5 strategies, and this is 2010 version. Energy, you have more, and there's more requirements, and always energy is something that people insist more. And so with the materials, but the only thing is storage and collection of recyclables during the construction, which is something we do almost intuitively, right? All the rest is not really required. So you may avoid to have even the healthy materials. Also for interior environment, just a minimum performance and control of tobacco smoke. That's interesting. Still people smoke inside the buildings. Well, there's 2 requirements. So the interior air quality performance requirement is very minimum, right? So you can have like a really miserable interior and still have the certification. And the innovation is the one people apply less because you cannot innovate all the time, but still you can have up to 5 points there, right? So again, that's very practical system and comparatively much easier to use, not as complex. And it's not a bad idea you go to it to find strategies, to find things you can do in your project. But I wouldn't believe that being LEED is being green. at all. It's just one tool. G-Seed. This is Korea. 우리 대한민국 어떻게? And this is a green standard for energy and environmental design. Yeah, design is kind of a keyword in Korea, right? Since Im Young-bak, probably it's like a design. Korea will be a design country, and design is part of our religion or genetics. And we change architecture by architectural design, and we are designers, not architects anymore. It's kind of sad. Anyhow, this is also one of the youngest. And curiously, having the possibility of doing something really, I wouldn't say innovative, but very specific for Korea, with the experience of those LEED, BREEAM, and all those guys, as the Germans and the Japanese did, the government played safe, no risk. LEED and BREEAM, I will just get the best of those two, which are the ones oldest, the most established. That's it. And you have good information. And of course, I think for public buildings is mandatory. I'm not sure for private buildings, so you have to deal with it. It's not bad, but okay, I think it's kind of a missed opportunity, right? The creative and intelligent country, just plain safe, not risking anything, is like a bit getting under. So what we commented, so you have a few examples on how things are. So you have a bit context. And this is just a comparison I did to show you how arbitrary those systems are. You may have a great score with one and poor score with others. It just shows a LEED and BREEAM, right? Then green globes because it was very easy. At that time, I didn't go into TGMB and CASB because it's very hard to compare. If I put in a graph, the blue is LEED, green is green globes, and the yellow is BREEAM. And the points are the innovation, energy transport, ecology, ecology transport, energy, water, materials, pollution waste, interior, and management. You see that in most of the elements, the difference is huge. Curiously, the water is scoring low almost everywhere, the same as the project management and innovation and so on. Energy is the most evaluated everywhere, but still the differences are substantial. So you may have super platinum in LEED and probably not even certified in BREEAM. And let's not even mention DNSB or CASB or whatever. Not sure about G-Seed because it's kind of mixing probably. G-Seed is not silly, it's intelligently done, right? So it gets the better, but still, yeah, why just going to those two? I don't know. And there is a lot of critique, which we commented already, right? So I just collected the things I see most often to give context. The most weak point is that standards, that baseline we use for comparison. We need to decide that. And curiously, for almost every system, skyscraper, a glass tower is by far less strict than one small house done with bricks or mortar or concrete. Why? If the tower is has much more impact. Well, if are strict, no tower builder will even try to have the certification. So you need to have something going on and telling you improve those towers, right? So that's really a weak point. And I give you an example. This is two famous towers. On the left, Seagram building. If we give a score up to 10 points, in terms of energy performance, Seagram is 3. The most disastrous energy building in history, right? Just 3. In the center is the World Trade Center Tower 7. I think the platinum LEED, performance 75. The latest technology, best of LEED, and you know LEED is green. It's 25 times better than Seagram's. Big achievement. But we have Chrysler Building, which is 1930. 1930. It just has windows and walls. To be fair, it has been renewed, so it has improved, but still, it is traditional, and the performance is much, much better than World Trade Center. So the peak of technology is only 88% as good as 1930s technology. And this is something that people, the lead guys, do not tell you, right? A glass tower is an ecological disaster, whatever you do. And to make that tower, you have to use like a very sophisticated materials, high quality glass, and they all have a huge carbon footprint. So you will have to deal with the life cycle analysis also, which we saw. You can have lead platinum without any kind of life cycle analysis at all. So weak point. Second, as we commented with solar panels, often the things that people include in the design are just to give the image, to look sustainable, not to be really. Most painful are the windmills, which became trendy a few years ago. Now we don't see them anymore because this was very much published everywhere and they never worked, right? And we have one specific study. This is Professor Wong Chongyun. She was working in SOM, I think. She did a study for really detailed studies, 1 year of work to know that that windmill will provide like 0.003 of the energy of the building. It's not worth at all. Right. So if you use it, it's just to look sustainable, not to be really sustainable. That is not worth. And then again, my critic with lead could be any of those, but this is like so much intrusive. You have, if you use lead, it's not only green, but you will have better leases. You will have tax rebates. You have high property values. You will become rich. And if your priority is to be rich, ecology is not really what you want. It's like a lot of marketing going on there. And we have customer service, it's professional attendance. So like it's like really not much the character you expect on a non-profit organization, right? It's like more business as usual. And then shop now. It's really Sobi Sahue, that consumption society, which is again against sustainability, right? And you can give, you have apps, education exams, but you have also merchandise. You can have a t-shirt and cups and things which you don't need, but just to spread the word to have publicity, which again, and then it is great. It's not profit, but you have the opportunity to buy one single book by $200, because usually they are like $250. And since they have so many paragraphs, if you want to study everything and have the certification, you may spend thousands of dollars in books. And of course, you can have the t-shirt and the bag, all very sustainable, to spread the word. So I'm confused with this, right? Third point is, as we commented in design, structures, systems, and everything else, those things are just all the simulations we do, all the projects is a bet in the future. And the future has one unchangeable property. We don't know. If we knew, we would be God, not human. So we cannot guarantee the performance of the building in the future. It's impossible because it depends on so many things, right? And since LEED provides a certificate, you give the client telling, I certificate this building will be 30% or 50% more energy efficient. The States, which is a country of lawyers, they are now having like a floods of suits in court for millions and millions, right? Some architects have like 100 million plus against LEED, against the architects, because the certificate doesn't show the reality. And that's a really serious thing. My suggestion, not advice, my suggestion, if you ever become a certified LEED or GC or whatever, never certify future performance. You say this is a prevision, there's a possibility, but it depends on many things. When you certify something legally, you're telling you are certain about it. So certify the future is suicidal, especially in a society where lawyers are very active. Korea, China, other places are not more about the word, and it's not about the trust, but still certifying something you don't know is suicidal. It's something that you never do. And if you go to the news, we have like endless news about buildings performing much worse than the certification. It is endless, right? This is one example. This is for the University of Florida. Florida, they did a certified building, and you have the baseline. So it's like the expenditure of energy of 2,750. The LEED told like much less, right, 1,500. So they certified savings of about 1,500, right? But the real performance changed because the climate changes, because the weather is not the same, because people use properly, because the consumption is good. So in reality, they saved, which is the frustrating thing. They have a significant saving, but even if you have everything, you want more, right? So that was, or that is the danger. You can say it will be better, but depends on so many things, right? But you never certify the future performance. Other things happen, like the famous, we spoke about Norman Foster, London City Hall. This is other of the most famous buildings, St. Mary Excess or Gherkin building, how you want to call it. It was very, very ingenious to have the air moving in a spiral to the facade to have for ventilation. But this is all City of London, insurance companies, investment companies, lawyers companies, which need total secrecy. And then the first thing they did moving there is blocking the air. So there's no sound, no air, and the performance is terrible. Okay. So again, the building might be perfect, but it might not fit the user. Right? And even in an office, it is like quite mature and very expert. Foster, with his at that time 2,000, 3,000 very expert architects, and they missed just the basic requirement of the users of the City of London. And this is their city, right? It's not that they came to Seoul and didn't understand how Korean companies work. 4 is the job opportunities. This is what is in the proper of LEED. If you're a LEED certified architect, you will be the king because everybody will come to you to have a certified building. Well, the point is, I have been year by year the statistics, and we have like the hundreds of thousands of members, but very few real buildings. So I have statistics of 2009, we have 100,000 certified people, only 7,000 buildings certified. 2013 became better, twice as much, more buildings, but still 1 building per 4 people. Then last time I saw it was 2015, I think. No, last year I saw it again. Let me hit this out. Already, so it kind of stopped the certified architects. No wonder. But 200,000 people only certified 28,000 buildings. So it's like 1 building for every 7 people. So I don't think being certified will give you more work. That said, I think it's a good idea you get some certification. GSEED or GHMB or even LEED, because it's not a question of faith or religion, you know the limitations, but this gives you some additional edge, some additional knowledge, and some tools which other people do not have. So I will suggest having some certification or several of them if you are going into the architectural design or construction market, which also works, even in the real estate, that helps, but don't expect that making you rich or giving you a lot of commissions, because there's not so many applications for that. That said, Korea was number 10 on using LEED a few years ago. Now it's like a number 4 or 5 in the world. So it's like that eagerness to be lead-based country. The final is a famous one I added. This is old, but Frank Gehry is respected architect and really good architect, no matter how weird and old he can be. And there was a scandal because 10, 12 years ago, he published in an interview that many of the climate things and sustainability are just political issues. But okay, they are political issues, right? Policy is about how we manage the humanity. So it's very ambiguous statement. And said a lot of lead is given for bogus stuff. So you get a lot of points for almost nothing. You can judge by yourselves. We saw a summary of the lists, right? And the costs of making a green building are enormous and they don't pay back in your lifetime. Again, this is a coffee shop talk, but somebody who knows very well because built more than I will ever do for sure. But we already saw that everything's ambiguous. Can be or cannot be, right? As we studied today. So after the scandal, it was 2010, there was a correction, new interview, and smiling, telling, come on, I didn't say that, it's out of context, you know. So yeah, I was surprised of my talk being so repeated around. It is out of context. I never said I was supposed to lead. I just said they do just give you points for silly things. That's not being against. That's just out of love of the system. I'm not against. Okay. And then is lead a valid way to encourage green building? And of course it is, but it's a way among many. And I think it's very clear, very clever statement. It helps, we solve, makes things better. Anything which makes things better is good, right? But it's not the end of the world as the lead themselves guys claim. And very often, that's true. Many people do not apply for that certification because not necessary. And you can be more sustainable than the platinum lead or whatever without having the certification because that process is expensive and it takes a lot of paperwork. And it's just to have the paper, the certificate, right? So very often, non-certified buildings are much better than certified buildings, and we don't know. But as a conclusion, we're almost on time, important is creativity and will. And again, this is a very clever guy. Creativity, not necessarily innovation. Creativity is a basic characteristic of human activity. We have to be creative from the moment we wake up. Right? We miss the bus and we have to think taxi, run, scooter, whatever. We have to take decisions always in a creative way, things which still a program, intelligence artificial cannot do, right? Innovation is different. And will, of course, as we recommended, you need really to want to do it. Not only you, your client, the building company, your engineers, the user, and the politicians, the banks, everybody else. So that's important points. And a lot of it is common sense. Yeah, Sangxi. Yeah, common sense. Right. So to have the daylight is better than opening that, switching the light on, or opening the windows is better than putting the air conditioning. Things like that. That still are like a huge percentage of the lead points you get. So to go back to the beginning, right? What's the bottom line? The conclusion of all this, which we could end with Frank Gehry. So this is the comment we did at the beginning. Architecture is an aggression of nature. It's a human action against nature, right? But it is designed to shelter and work. So it's a necessity which is fighting against nature. And there was Le Corbusier writing in 1925, almost 100 years ago. Also a very clever guy, right? He knew very well. And the first part is the part we don't want to even think about. And we don't tell at school, we are designers, we are creative, we have great concepts, we make things exciting, fun. Come on, it's more than that, right? So I cannot repeat enough. Our eco-friendly architecture does not exist. We can do less harm, we can repair things, but buildings are not ecological at all. So if I want to give a conclusion of this, to be positive, good architecture is sustainable to an acceptable degree. And this is the point. Sustainability is so complex, is degrees of sustainability, are areas, right? By definition, good architecture should be sustainable to some extent. And this is the comprehensive view we had. On the opposite, if the architecture is not sustainable to an acceptable degree, it's not good architecture. Full stop. I'm not sure I would say this is my opinion or a belief or whatever, but this is what I would conclude. Like the basic ideas of those 5 lectures, 3 weeks going on the subject. And that's the last comment. Now we go to the end of the class. And then I invite you to go to your activity sheet, which is kind of survey, right? So we have 5 questions. And if you're kind enough, your replies help very much to improve the course. I am not sure I will teach anymore next year, but even if I don't, we are reviewing the full curriculum and we try to improve the courses, right? So this is something that always helps. This course has been taught already 11 times by myself, and once by Professor Kim Jae-yeon in a winter course, right? So we have a lot of experience, but still things can be better. The first question is, after completing the course, we finish tomorrow. Yeah, don't run too much, but in terms of contents, what is your opinion? The course is complete and well balanced. That's one. It has too much theory, but miss assignments, more application, or just the opposite. Too many assignments and we miss some theory. Or it is balanced, but has too much of everything. This is the most popular usually. Or balanced, but it's too little of everything, but some people say it's not enough. Or you may have another opinion. So you may choose one of the 5 or think something totally different. I never remember who says what. When we had fully online, I did in Blackboard Anonymous, but really, even when I see the assignments, some of the graphics are very characteristic, but I never know the name of the people who I'm correcting. Then I go to the list and say, oh, this student has always like a 7, 7, 7, kind of consistency, but I never look at the names. And actually, I memorize very few of them, but whatever. If you have an opinion, please share it so we can go to the next. Yeah, I see Hyeju writing very carefully. The beautiful letter she has. Thank you so much. Let's go to the question 2. This is related to the previous question, right? Do you think this course would be better just kept as it is good enough and no change? Or maybe it's better split in 2 semesters, for example, like a structure and envelope, one semester with environment, integration, and sustainability. Or again, split into semesters, but one semester concentrating in theory, one semester doing just practical work, like a design, application, and so on, like a studio. Or this course is redundant because actually we already learn everything, so it's better it disappears. This is so popular. Many people want to have less courses, right? Or you have another different opinion. I put just the most popular ones, but of course it can be creative or innovative. Yeah, it seems this was easier. This is very much a specific question. Okay, let's go to the next question 3. This is as you're graduating, you already know the 5 years, 1 semester is missing, but still in the context of the curriculum, this course is in the right moment. It's perfect time to have this kind of course, or it should be in first or second year, like preparing for more specialized courses to have the basis, not just the review. Or it should be third year after materials course because it's kind of continuation and you don't forget things. Or it should be in fourth year because you have more time and you're more fresh to apply in Studio 5 or 6, not in Studio 7, which is very much stressful, right? Or any other opinion. The moment we have the courses in the curriculum, it's not easy to decide always, right? And I'm interested to know your opinion about it. Wow, it's nice, so much writing. Thank you so much. Okay, 2 more questions left. Regarding your expectations, because surely you have some expectation when you started this course. The course is just as you imagined, no surprises, or you thought you will learn a lot and then you found it is very basic and you didn't learn as much as you expected, or you wanted to secure just basic knowledge, but it was too much, so much that it was not helpful, or just want to finish and forget about this, which is a very popular reply, or any other thing. About question 4, there's not much we can do, but about the others, they can be also helpful. And there's much subjective impression. It's not this is how you feel about things. Okay, now the last question. Also in Spain, we say it's never last, it's always before last. In your opinion, which parts of the course were better and which ones should be improved, changed, or be suppressed? So you don't need to reply both of them, but you can say things you really thought were useful, inspiring, instructing, or things you missed and you wanted to have added, right? Or things that you found useless and you would suppress, because surely you have an idea of things you were suffering and didn't help, and other things that's really thought useful, helpful, and even interesting, or even fun. I don't know. Also, this is not a course for fun, but again, this is very interesting for us to know, right? And again, you don't need to be kind, right? I'm used to harsh opinions, so no, we have almost no more hair to lose, so that's okay. And I have been also a student for many years, so I have also my opinions. So surely I never saw as strong and negative opinions as mine. So you have to try hard to be harsh. Okay, so much for your opinions. Thank you so much again. And still you have the final question as usual. You can add any kind of free comment. So let's wrap up this course, right? But are we really ending? Well, one thing is I myself, I'm not a sprinter, I'm like endurance guy. And this course is a very long-term bet, right? So if it is useful, the benefits will come over the years. Hopefully, that's the plan. But again, we have to end the course. And you remember this, right? Those dots, we have not any kind of logic. This is probably the stage we have now. This course is like a lot of things with a very difficult logic, but which with experience and knowledge will create a big picture in which your understanding of architecture will be linked. It's not like a very different techniques or areas. It's all just an idea of architecture or city as a whole, right? So during the course, we saw the what and the why of the building systems. This is not the real covers of this course because I didn't update this, but we saw what is the course about. Then we reviewed the 4 main systems. We let out the landscape. We saw about the structure. And probably one bottom line of structure is that beautiful buildings have beautiful structures, because that means also safe, right? Ecological, sustainable, but structures are part of the design, it's not something added. Then we spent most of our time in the envelope, which is facades and roofs mostly. And in which we saw the envelope is the face of the building, right? This is where we put the design effort. And very often projects are just like creating a wrapping for whatever. It's the only thing we produce in many courses. But it's also interface, right? So as good as my English can be, playing with words, right? It is the element which really connects with the environment and protects us. So there's a huge impact, and we have to be very aware of that. There's more than just the aesthetics or the design itself. Then we added, of course, interior technical systems, interior environments. And the point is that architecture more than dividing rooms with walls, which is what happens often in design studio. We have a program, we put one wall to make sure we put every space, but it's more than that. We are really creating spaces for life to be carried on, right? It's more than that. And this is what really means architecture and interior design and environmental design. We continue to, of course, with fire protection. Safety is important. And we tried to put things together very much at the end. We have the integration, sustainability, and today's beautiful rainy. Always the course ends at the beginning of the Changma. So it's kind of rain, has kind of feeling, it's kind of nostalgic, summer heat and humidity. So in the end, as we said, it is repeating, but good architecture is sustainable. Non-sustainable architecture is not good architecture. And sustainability in the full sense of it, right? From energy to site, to ecology, to culture, to usability, to human life, and all that. And it is more than our work. So we think we do one project, it's finished. And I get surprised because we have a brilliant student saying, wow, he's a great architect. Architect is the one who built, at least, right? And even so, the buildings and cities have their own logic and their own life. They're not our property. It's not my building, it's not my design. It's like the children. You think as people getting out of your house, so you're not your parents' property, you are yourself, right? Buildings are like our children. They have their own life, their own future. For each system, we've tried to be very comprehensive. The historical context, the alternatives and the choices, the integration, the graphics for the design, pre-dimensioning, and sustainability. These are very ambitious. And when you're very ambitious, it's very hard to keep the standards and aware of it. We had, for first time in history, online, offline courses mixed, with still all lectures in YouTube, but also in class, which has been a real pain to manage, I have to say. But happy to be able to satisfy most of the needs of the class. And we have a good collection. As long as YouTube exists, the lectures are there. The comments are open. I sometimes listen to them. It's painful to listen oneself, and I find some mistakes, some errors, and I correct in the comments, you can always go to them. And again, as long as YouTube exists, those exist for good or for bad. And remember that we have subtitles, and like and subscribe. And then probably most interesting is try to apply the system to our design, which was toughest part because we're not used to, right? Stuff for everybody. I spent already one full bottle of ink. And we recovered the joy of examinations. We had, after 2 years, real exam. It was fun. We recovered class life, almost the same people. And after 2 years or 3, we could go to site visits, right? Go to the hospital and energy drink center. And actually it was exhausting. With so few people, it was clear, but we have always this kind of landscape in class. But probably has also exciting moments, right? And probably site visits were among always the best ones. At least it's nice to see people engaged and looking and asking questions. But in the end, until really the end, because we have 2 minutes, on the same end, we have the materials because it's the same contents and same instructor. So is this kind of indigestion, right? Or just planting a seed for the future? I said the course is like a really long-term investment. And you might never see the benefits because you might do some other thing, which is perfectly okay. It's your decision. And we are not actually always the owners of our own fate. Yeah, the life carries us to many different ways, but it might become in the future something important, right? So you can consider it hard indigestion. It's just a seed you have to foster and care for the future. If I have to summarize in 3 words, I wish you are a bit better in Hanja. This is Korean culture. Chanshir, probably in Chinese. Joshiki in Japanese. Sangshik. Common sense, really. Before being designers, before being architects, we are human beings, right? We work for human beings, and common sense comes always first. This is here. Probably in Japanese, shuchu. Probably Korean say 집중. 집중. Which I consider, this is free translation, this is mine, yes, intensity. Whatever you do, right? Whatever you choose to do it with intensity, not just to have the minimum. Because in the end, what remains when you reach your old life, which I wish you all have a long life, what remains is what you did, right, during the time. And that intensity always has better results and much more satisfaction than in just doing the minimum just to accomplish things. And the third one, Japanese probably dokuso, dokchan, creativity. Yeah, this is creative is our life. The moment we are routinary, repetitive, one robot, one algorithm could take our job. And we are in an era in which artificial intelligence and algorithms are taking over human works. The way to stay alive in an uncertain future is to be creative, to be human at all rates. Innovation is an exception, could happen, but it's not a main aim, I think. Being creative is being human in the end. So if you forget everything, at least I wish you keep those 3 things as things you got from not only this course, which is very pretentious of me telling I was so good to embody all those, but in basic things I wish you keep with yourselves, right? Because you're good enough to do this and more than that. And then, well, actually, this is the ending of a course, but really the starting in one more semester, a new stage of your life. And it's like the sea, right? It is open, full of possibilities. Nobody knows the future. And I hope you the best. So thank you so much for enduring. And that's it. Thank you so much. So, you know, submission is online. We have no class tomorrow, but if you want something with me personally, you can just contact me and have some time for talking or some message, whatever. Okay. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Online Studios, thank you so much. Also.